Hey, welcome to another Daily Dose of Hope, a week of encouragement. We try to give you. Hi, Troy.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
That was a good start, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was a good start. I'm assuming you're kind of nervous because the Astros now have the best record in the American League, and they are now in first place in the American League West. And if they happen to play by some chance in the American League East, they'd be in first place there.
Yes, I stuttered in the beginning because I was preparing myself for your glib tirades and persecuting of me and my Red Sox.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, anyway, I'm glad to be here with you today, Bill, because even though I don't like the Red Sox, I love you. And you know this for a fact, the Red Sox actually are my third favorite American League team.
This third favorite thing, we'll get into that in another Daily Dose of Hope about favorites. You can only have one favorite by definition, so whatever. Hey, listen, we're going to do something different this week, and maybe it'll take 2 weeks. We're going to have a long-form discussion around a subject that Troy and I have been discussing behind the scenes, and you're not going to hear the traditional see you tomorrow. We're just going to cut it up in 5 or 10 episodes, however it works out. So bear with us. Come back every day and see where this goes because we think it's pretty important.
This is going to be good. This stuff that we're talking about over the next several days is good.
It's foundational stuff for me, and it really came from a question I had for Troy, and I'll frame it to you again. I'm a primary sex addict. That's what got me in trouble. Lost my ministry, lost my marriage. You all know that story. Am I doing myself any favors, Troy, or am I just absolutely perpetuating the same sinful, addictive behavior by adopting secondary addictions, like watching sports constantly, following it constantly, my addiction to food?
Yeah.
Is that just as bad as what I was doing before? Because I feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I mean, so for starters, the fact that you feel guilty about it is a whole other discussion, and we ought to do a Daily Dose of Hope series of episodes on guilt and shame, because my question for you in that regard would just be, are you feeling guilty because God's convicting you that it's wrong, or are you feeling guilty just because you have this kind of lifestyle of shame and you feel guilty about tons of stuff?
I think every once in a while I'll get convicted by God about something. Don't watch this tonight, spend it with your wife, and I watch it anyway. But it's mostly just, I think, a lifestyle of guilt and shame.
Yeah, so here's the thing. All addiction, if we look at it through biblical metaphor or biblical lens, is idolatry. And so there may be big addictions, drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, and there may be smaller addictions. Secondary was the term that you used. Those would include things like, for instance, food, shopping, hobbies, sports, Pinterest,
Technology.
social media, technology. All of that can be a problem. The difference between the two tends to be, for starters, these are clearly sinful and clearly outside of God's bounds for us. Sex has a context, and we step outside of that context, it's sinful and wrong. Alcohol and drugs, or let me just say drunkenness and drug use are always wrong. There's never a context in which they're right. And so over here in this primary addiction bucket, these things are clearly wrong. They have a level of consequence that's higher than other things. We come over here in this bucket of secondary addictions, if you will, and they're not clearly sinful. They're not clearly wrong. Some of them are even God-given appetites. For example, the appetite for food. God created within us an appetite for food because guess what? We need food to survive. And if I don't eat, eventually I'm going to wither away and die. Now, it may take a long time for you and I to wither away and die.
Right.
But the bottom line is these secondary addiction things are not on the surface or on the face of things sinful, wrong, and they're certainly not as consequential. But the question I hear you asking is, are they connected in any way?
Yeah.
And is it dangerous to really, let these be unchecked, and will they lead me back over here to this
Can
place?
they trigger you to your primary stuff?
Yeah, and I think those two questions are key questions that we need to talk about as this thing unfolds.
Okay.
So we're going to